Hi everybody, my name is Patsy Cline.
And my name is Indika Haze.
And today, we are at the Tacoma Art Museum.
That's right, the TAM, right here in downtown Tacoma. It's a beautiful museum.
It's a beautiful museum.
This piece in the middle is just there's so much to it.
You almost want to think that it's like screaming out in anger. But honestly, I see a celebration.
I do too. The colors throughout it, even the light or what looks like it's shining out of its head or its eyes.
And with all the sort of, rainbow colors, I think it's one of those beautiful sort of like moments where you're just crying out in celebration, and reminding me of Pride Month, how everybody's sort of like screaming and yelling and having a good time. And to some people, if you didn't know the context, it might look like they're screaming out in terror. But, celebration.
Absolutely. Especially in these, especially now, this is a pastel, I believe. Makes me maybe pen, people love that. But you can tell that.
Do the colors speak to you?
They really do. And I really love how in certain areas of the line work, it's just blended and smudged, and there are other pieces that are so defined.
You know what I've noticed too? It's sort of like the area outside of this person is sort of gray and drab, and then around him are the colors. It's like an aura of expression and delight and celebration, and it's filling up this sort of black and white sort of area around him.
Yeah.
Just like celebration does in sort of a bleak world.
Absolutely.
Next to it, I think, is also very fabulous. Colors just remind me of how diverse gender is in Indigenous communities.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially with Two-Spirit.
Yes.
And so that just sort of reminisced to me about that.
I agree. I also feel like it brings that to the foreground, which is that Two-Spirit is something that sadly was kind of pushed away, and colonizing is something that people don't really see as often anymore. And in that, it also helps tie into the modern struggle of trans people of color, and people who are non-binary. I love the reflection down the breastplate here actually is
I just noticed that too!
Yeah, I think for me, it doesn't necessarily have to be that it's queer, but if a person comes in and they can see themselves reflected in all the different explorations in the movement.
Right. And that's what's beautiful about art in general.
Absolutely.
I'd love to talk about
this one right here.
In a time where global warming, climate change, conservation are at the forefront of the discussion to make sure we have a place to live in 100 years, this really spoke to me. You see this beautiful lush forest and this one singular cut down tree, and it just reminds me of how important it is to maintain our forests, to maintain our environment, to make sure that the world around us is preserved for not only ourselves but for our future. It's just, that's kind of what spoke to me. I don't know if necessarily that has anything to do with it, but conservation has always been something that's very important to me. I used to work for the National Park Service, so just seeing sort of this, to me, the cut down stump is sort of the main draw to the whole thing.
We're just that it's a cabin built in it too, so it's not the first.
Right, exactly.
To come down.
And it's almost like look at what man can build versus look at the natural beauty of the world.
I hadn't thought about it that way. That's interesting.
I'm smart.
I did love it, and I see exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
It's interesting that it's called View.
And that view wouldn't exist unless someone sort of chopped it down, right?
Well, it still exists.
It would exist, right? It just wouldn't be as accessible. But
sometimes things that are harder to get to are worth it more than things that are easy.
Sometimes things should just be left alone.
Absolutely.
Just because it's beautiful doesn't mean we need to bother it.
Oh my gosh, right?
That's right. Leave us alone.
Perhaps, please. I do want to talk about this piece, actually. What draws me most to it is all this craziness and this almost seems pulled tension through here.
Right.
It's just stretched so thin, stretched so thin. And you get up here and it's just wide, soft, and blended, and
there's more clarity.
Ease, And I think a lot of us are stuck here, especially right now, right? We're just all being pulled all different directions while at home. We don't know what to do with ourselves. And being able to find that beauty in even the darkest sort of surroundings and situation, I think is something that we should all strive for a little bit more right now.
For me, it reminds me of moving to New York City, living there for 7 years, and as much of a valuable sort of time in my life that was, I really got sick of being compacted into this like just iron and cement jungle. And so I just think of how this is sort of what New York would look like to me. It was just lines and harshness. And then sort of when I moved west to Seattle, it was sort of this beautiful new future where, you know, yes, there was civilization, but there are so many, you know, natural forests and mountain ranges and, you know, so much wildlife out here. So that's sort of been inspiring for me. We have been delighted to share this Pride Month and to show you some of our favorite pieces here.
And we can't wait for you to have your opportunity to come on down here to Tacoma Art Museum and go on a tour of your very own and find some pieces that inspire you.
And maybe we'll see you there.
Here's hoping. Don't forget, Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.
Keep social distancing up.
Wear a mask.